Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Gaijin has announced today that the ground force British tech tree is going to be getting rearranged, and even though they did an article on it, I thought it would be better just to kind of show you in the game. Gaijin has actually done a really good job of actually kind of showing what's going on with this. So first of all, they've put a little question mark next to all of the vehicles that are changing. So this is kind of the label that was talked about. So all the vehicles that are affected by this change have this label on them, and then when you click the question mark, it actually brings you basically to the dev blog, which they have turned up with. So you can see this is going to be how the kind of next little areas are going to look like. So this is what rank 7 will look like with the TTD now in the Vickers line. And then also with rank 6, you have the Oliphant and the Oliphant Mark 1, which have been moved over to this kind of MBT line. And then also the Vickers Mark 11 and VFM 5 are going to be grouped with these two. Then in rank 4, you have the Rhino being moved over to this area, and the M109A1 being folded with the FV4005. The Eland's still staying on that right-hand side. So basically, as it said, after the changes, the MBT line after the Vickers Mark 1 will focus on Commonwealth tanks and export MBTs. The right line will focus on light-wheeled and tracked AFVs, classified in-game as light tanks. So this basically means that as they add more nations into the game, as they add more stuff to Britain, then therefore we will get more stuff in the correct lines. I think this is really cool because it basically opens up Gaijin to basically put all of the kind of new export MBTs into here, and then all of the light tanks into here. And there won't be any kind of confusion from players where certain things should be. It's fantastic. It's exactly how they should have done it basically a while ago. It's nice to see it right now. Let's get into the rest of the video where we talk about this type of thing. So I wanted to talk about the fact that they're changing this and how it's probably going to affect good old Britain, but also other tech trees at the same time. The idea of sub-tech trees in War Thunder was one of the best ones Gaijin has had over the last 5 years. Basically, it means that you don't have to create an independent tech tree, that not a ton of people are going to play because of the fact that it won't have great lineups, and also because the vast majority of people don't have enough time to be able to play many different nations in the game. We already have a problem when it comes to War Thunder, which is the simple fact that most of the nations don't get played by most people, and it's just because of time. It takes too long nowadays to be able to grind through them. Hopefully Gaijin can do something about that. Hopefully they can reduce the grind or do some other bonuses, kind of like the good old daily bonuses that they added in. Maybe they can add some other stuff in. But when it comes to sub-tech trees, this was a way of adding vehicles from nations which maybe wouldn't work as well as independent nations into tech trees and make it so their vehicles are played more than they would be over another place. And I've seen a lot of people get annoyed at this. Usually it's people from these nations who want their nations fully represented when it comes to the game and feel like them being put into another tech tree kind of minimizes what they are, because it's basically taking the vehicles from their nation and plugging it into another one. But the way that I've always seen it is the fact that, well, they can either do it this way as the subtree, and you can play the vehicles alongside good lineups, or you could just play them by themselves. You know, it's really up to you. But also at the same time, it means that they actually get played and people actually enjoy them, and more people will actually get access to them, which I think is more important than them just being in their own tree, getting their own flag. Now, as we get more and more sub-tech trees into the game, because obviously that's going to happen, we know in the next update, Thailand is coming in for Japan, right? In the ground tech tree. This is going to bring in two more issues that is going to turn up. And we've already kind of seen them, right? With some of the kind of Chinese response to the Thai vehicles going into the Japanese ground tech tree. The first response is the fact that people are going to bring in geopolitics into video game once again. For some reason over the last few years, and this has been the case for War Thunder since the beginning. Like, as a person who has been in War Thunder since 2012, 2013, there's always that kind of percentage of people who are very interested in geopolitics and for some reason use the lens of War Thunder to push their, ideas, even though we literally have, Nazi Germany in the game. We have, obviously, the fascistic Italians and many other regimes during the years, which, if you were being quite honest, shouldn't be in the game if you, didn't have the standards of the modern day. But basically, what we're going to have is we're going to have a big push for these types of things. Like, we already saw this. The leaks came out for the Japanese ground tech tree where they were adding in the Thai subtech tree, right? And in the leaks, it was said that there was going to be a VT4 premium. Turns out there wasn't. It was just a straight lie. And the person who leaked it obviously was just gaslighting people. Like, when it came to the fact that it was going to get in. Because if you didn't know, China and Japan don't get along. And they don't get along because of the atrocities that Japan ended up committing in China. A lot of the things they haven't even acknowledged or even apologized for, even after 80 years. And China is having their kind of like 80-year anniversary of the end of the invasion or conflict or whatever you really want to call it when it comes to that. So it's obviously a bit of a touchy subject at the moment, and always should be, because it's two areas of the world which have never actually had reconciliation. There wasn't a moment with Japan when it was like the West Germany, East Germany stuff, and the whole, the basically Marshall Plan to try and get Germany back into a place where they weren't a very fascistic and destructive country. That never really happened with Japan. They were just kind of more neutered, and then they just didn't apologize for anything. So basically, China, a lot of Chinese people still resent them. And when the news came out that this VT4, which is a Chinese vehicle, even though Thailand uses, was going to come to the Japanese tech tree, this sent a lot of Chinese people into a frenzy because of the fact that in their minds it is disrespectful to be able to put this vehicle into the Japanese tech tree, since it would be seen as them giving technology to Japan, and especially at this time, which is ridiculous, but it just shows the fact that you have the nationalist sentiment there. And this isn't just a Chinese issue, by the way, and I do want to stress that was also never going to happen. It was just somebody gaslighting people. But that's also, part of it. The other thing to stress is this isn't a Chinese issue. This isn't every country issue. Every country has their set of nationalists. Every country has their set of people who have the opinions that, everything should basically belong to their nation. And if it doesn't, then that is a great, curse on the game and everything like that. It's just that the Chinese community as a percentage is slightly larger than other ones. If you did it for the Americans or the Germans or the Russians, you'd have a similar response, just like we've had in the past. It was kind of interesting with the Chinese side of things, because we even had people threatening to basically, if this happened, to write letters to the government of China or local governments of China in order to try and get the game shut down in China. This was Chinese people who play War Thunder in China was saying that if the VT4 was added to the Japanese tech tree, they would get the game shut down in China, meaning that they would not get to have access to it, and obviously Gaijin would lose revenue. These were threats that were made by a bunch of these people, and they're all on the War Thunder forums. You can go read them. It's kind of crazy actually going through them, but it shows how geopolitics affects a lot of these things, and it sucks because some people are just nuts when it comes to this. But the main thing is, subtech trees have been super positive for War Thunder. They've been incredibly good for actually adding in new vehicles for nations, stuff like the T-55M, for example, the CV9030 Fin. All of the South African vehicles have been incredibly positive. For Italy, with all the Hungarian stuff, even though a lot of it is is copy-paste, it's actually massively improved the Italian tech tree, and hopefully they add more of these things. But as they go further down the line, it'll be interesting what happens when these trees become kind of more multifaceted. For example, with Britain, if they add more Indian vehicles, if they add more Commonwealth vehicles, such as Canadian vehicles, what ends up happening to the British tech tree? Is it still called the British tech tree? And the answer will probably be yes, because there still needs to be kind of a long-standing name to these things. Otherwise, people get confused, even though the tech tree won't just be the British stuff anymore. So there'll be calls for changing its name and changing its flag and doing all of these things. But I think in general, it's just better to keep stuff the same. But that is the other side of the coin. What do you start calling these things? What happens when they start morphing into things which are slightly different compared to what's already there? In my kind of opinion, the major issue is the fact that we live in a time where too many people are actually mixing games with politics. And it's something that Gaijin has to be aware of when it comes to this stuff. And it's creating big issues in terms of where you can add certain stuff. So Israel right now is actually the nation which probably needs the subtech tree idea the most, adding more vehicles of different varieties and also just different playstyles to the tech tree. Will it happen? No, it definitely won't, because of, once again, what's happening in the modern world. It sucks. It really does. That Gaijin has to take into account this, and also the fact that even with a leak coming out for the Japanese tech tree and the leak being wrong and Gaijin saying that it was wrong after, I think it was 2 hours after it came out, you had a bunch of nutsos during that time who basically started just going crazy and setting fire to things, showing how dangerous these types of things can be. And even after the the post came out, which was like, no, we don't have any plans for this. This was never here. They now believe that, because of our pressure over that 2 hour period, they've decided to change their plans, believing that the leak was true in the first place. So how do you deal with that veracity? I think the fact is you can't. And it's just one of those things that we're just going to have to get used to when it comes to War Thunder, where everybody, well, not everybody, but that small percentage, which grows bigger and bigger every day, is going to get just more and more aggressive until everything just pops. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecovo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.